London. Hello,
Hi.
SJ. And
Hi.
you're both the co-founders of Family Portrait magazine. So if you probably know about Family Portrait magazine, which is a biannual print publication, which launched in January 2020, its first issue, already featuring amazing photographers such as Mar Fargo, Glenn Luchford, or Coco Capitan. And as the name says, it's a publication around the theme of family and understanding family. So I would like to start this live talk asking both of you guys how did this idea begin? What was the urge of making this magazine?
I suppose I previously worked on several other magazines. Years ago, I started a magazine called Used, and then I did Boys, worked on True Photo Journal with Assembly Design Agency, and about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I think, I was in the we were expecting a kid, my girlfriend and I was kind of thinking about the idea of family and what family meant, and I thought it was quite an interesting concept which hadn't necessarily been touched upon in kind of great depth. And I thought it's such a personal topic to everyone that the idea was very simple, but it had legs. You know, if you speak to one person about what the definition of family is, and then you speak to another person, it'll be completely different. So I then approached SJ, who we used to work at a design agency together. And I thought she'd be perfect for it, and we'd been friends for years since working together, and then got in touch, and she really liked the idea, and then we started kind of scouting out who would be interested, really.
And what would both of your personal definitions of family then would be, given that you have just like started a new family, for example?
Yeah, I guess from both of our backgrounds, it's kind of like your sort of traditional family background, and I have a big family, and I think Brendan's is slightly smaller, but it's the reason for making Family Portrait was to just celebrate family from any kind of background and any kind of definition of what family is. There's so many different definitions of what family could be, whether that's if you are biological or not, or genetically related. And I think one thing that has come out of the magazine, which we weren't expecting either, was that it does feel like we have created a new family in itself from doing it. It's definitely brought Brendan and I close together, because now he just never leaves me alone. But we were already great friends anyway, but you kind of go through a process, and I think allowing us to go through a process with the collaborators we've worked on with as well, it has such a personal kind of focus to make something like we've made, and that's what's been really nice. And just seeing, it's been an education for us as well, and seeing the stories come in and the families that are documented in the current issue. And we're just, like Brendan said, the idea has legs, and that's one thing that really attracted me to the idea first and foremost when he approached me. And yeah, we've barely touched the surface with what the definition of a family is. So it's not, I guess, so much.
I thought it was quite interesting when we started getting some of the initial stories through, you know, that some people like Max Farrago was had the story was his literal family, and then you get some of the stories which you never would have even kind of thought of, and I think that's the beauty of it. A lot of the shoots were a surprise to us as well, which is really exciting, you know.
Had you commissioned, like, what was the brief that you sent towards the photographers once you had like pinned down the idea? Like, was it like complete freedom, and that's how you were surprised with some of the ideas, or did you like try to also like put a theme to the first issue or anything?
Well, I don't think, I think if you have a really solid, simple idea, you don't need to have themes per issue. And we kind of wanted to stay away from that. I think it's more exploring such a wide concept. So, when we approach them, I think also if you want to get photographers of a certain caliber or artists of a certain caliber, you need to give them freedom and let them do what they're good at. You know, I think if you start kind of interfering too much, then you know you lose that element of trust, and you know, you don't have that organic process. You don't have you don't let them do what they're good at.
Of course. And so when I was reading about the magazine, I remember I was reading how it was like meant to drive people to like go back to their loved ones. Is this like a kind of reaction that, like, what would you ideally expect for people to like feel or think when they're looking at this magazine in terms of their personal lives? Like, what is a reflection that you're trying to like put forward for them, if any?
I guess for us, the underlying kind of theme for the magazine was always just to be really positive and really celebrate like family from all sort of different backgrounds. You know, some people are less fortunate in those backgrounds than others, but it's about, again, taking the positive of that and you know, making a new family and building something new out of your situation. And I think that's what the magazine celebrates too. Just going back to the personal definitions of family, and Brendan as well, like not being from London, you know, we've things like joining a football team, or that's kind of now a family that I really feel a part of, and it's something that has grown out of this dynamic that you wouldn't really kind of consider to be a family in a way, but it was just to kind of go back to what connections kind of make you feel good and what those core feelings are. And I guess embrace kind of every connection that you have in your life with whoever it is.
Yeah, and I guess it's really accurate at the moment, right? Because like with all the pandemic, everyone has been kind of going back. How do you feel? I don't know. Has this affected you personally? Like in terms of like, have you revisited old family, something like that, or reconnected with someone? How do you feel the current times has affected the concept of family?
I think I think that the beauty of the word family is that it's so open to interpretation. Like, I mean, like in the magazine, you can have your football team, or it could be I've got 2 cats and I consider them part of my family, as well as much as my daughter. And you know, it's I think when you have times like this, and a lot of people being cooped up and very lonely, I think you realize who you have in your life to lean on, and who your kind of your chosen family or your actual family are. You know, and I think it can be, it's a very lonely and difficult time for some people, but also it can be very positive as well. And we, you know, with the magazine, we wanted to pull out the positive side and kind of really show the I suppose the breadth of what family is, and kind of really celebrate it.
Yeah, kind of like fresher. Yeah. Somehow, right? Like a remembering of what's important somehow.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you had an interview with It's Nice That for everyone who hasn't read it, I recommend to read. And you said that basically the magazine, you wanted it to have a language that was closer to a photo book than to an actual magazine. And I was wondering if you could tell me a bit more about this kind of decision of maybe also like introducing your difference, like the difference between a magazine and a photo book, and the decision to make it like closer to a photo book.
Yeah, I mean the main reason was because we always wanted the images to lead the language of what the magazine would be. So we always said from starting out that the images and the stories that we had would inform the identity of the magazine. So the identity would never overpower. It would just be something that kind of elevated it in a way. One thing that we knew was probably quite a big selling point of the magazine to collaborators was that the photographers could approach the stories as almost personal projects in a way. Like when we were approaching the photographers, it was always, again, a conversation about what family meant to them, what they wanted to shoot for the project. And that is something that, you know, photographers will kind of go and do off their own backs too. We also said the design of each story, obviously it has to fit in the landscape of a magazine, but the photographer, it's a very collaborative project. So, you know, we've both worked in magazines before where the images have to fall into the design layout of a magazine and images get cropped and things like that, and that's something we never wanted to happen, which again comes back to how photographers would usually work when they're working on a personal project that's going to translate to a book rather than shooting for something that they've been commissioned for. And again, just the longevity of it, I think we wanted to really celebrate the imagery that we received and just kind of showcase it in the best design. So yeah, that was why.
I think one of the things about design as well is as soon as you don't have credits or any and especially fashion credits, it's quite like it kind of litters the page a little bit as well, and it takes away from the imagery. And I think with SJ's design, you know, it's just solely about the photography.
Yeah, it has a sense of also being more like slowed down somehow. I'm not sure if that was some of the intention. Do you feel that maybe it gives more permanence to the images as well? Like the act of like looking at it as if it was like a photo book instead of a magazine maybe makes you slow down somehow.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just, yeah, for it to be more of a constant thing rather than a seasonal thing. So even though it's come out in January 2020, it's still going to be as relevant in 10 years time as it was in January. And again, I think not having fashion and not having to kind of tick boxes with credits and things like that has helped that language and us to be able to do that. So
yeah, so we were talking before the live talk started how you would never, I mean, not never, but you would not accept a no from some of the photographers. And being the first issue is quite impressive. Like the board of photographers, it's an amazing work. And also being the most representative one, I'd like to know what were like your main, I don't know, how were you driven to like these photographers? How was the curation of the first issue?
Did I start? Or you start?
You go.
I guess we had a wish list basically of photographers who kind of visually represent what we felt family portrait should be. So we said we wanted the image to be really vibrant, have a lot of life in the images, and just kind of represent people's characters in the best possible way. Because of my background from being creative director and also Brenda's background of working in the industry for a number of years, we kind of already had some of those connections with those photographers, but also were reaching out to some of the photographers for the first time. Like Samuel Bradley, for example, he's someone that we got in touch with because of the magazine, and he really embraced the idea and was into it straight away, which is amazing. And since then I've gone on to work with him for a number of projects too, and formed a really nice friendship with him. So it was a kind of bit of both really. There was some people who we kind of reached out to and politely just said know they don't have the time and things like that, and that's totally cool as well. You know, hopefully we'll reapproach those in the future and collaborate on it again once the magazine's a little bit more established, perhaps. We sort of just, if people were a little bit unsure, we'd kind of just say, look, we're going to do the best we can with it. And again, making it really collaborative, and talking, being really open with how the stories are and how the rest of the magazine is forming with the collaborators for the first issue, we thought was really important. Yeah, Brendan, have you got anything to add on that?
No, I think you've just about covered it.
Covered it.
Yeah. Do you have already anyone in mind for next issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the first issue we had quite a few people who, like we were saying before, you know, these projects take a long period of time. A lot of these photographers are very busy, so to lock in the amount of time and then actually produce it, and then get it retouched and everything. A lot of the guys and girls that we really liked, they weren't available, so we kind of like bringing some of them across to the second issue. And so there's still there's still a few people we're kind of hounding, and hopefully we'll break them down until they agree. But obviously with the situation we've got at the moment, it's been no one really knows what's going to happen.
Of course.
So and a lot of the projects as well, you know, somewhere like South Africa, Nigeria, Mississippi, Norway, they're kind of all over the place. So with travel, it makes things a lot more difficult as well.
Yeah. But we, like, you know, with the first issue collaborators that we managed to get on board, we think it's kind of a really good foundation for the second issue. So.
Absolutely. And you're always looking forward to commissioning the photographers. This is something that you'd like to do, or are you like maybe thinking in the future to I don't know, accept submissions from other photographers? How are you working on this basis? Do you think it's more like of something that you'd like to, like, I don't know, target photographers and want them, or maybe like curate them in the same magazine, or is it something that, are you open for submissions of any type, or will you be in the future, do you think?
I mean, we haven't been doing submissions initially, I think, because it's I think it's something which is, you know, it's based on a conversation between the magazine and the artist. It's quite I think it's better starting from the beginning with someone in mind, and also, you know, it's like a jigsaw piece where you get one photographer and another, and they all kind of come together slowly, and you slowly build up this picture that there's not too much crossover in terms of subject and style and things like that. That it's quite hard to just take submissions. But I mean, I don't think we've ruled it out by any stretch of imagination.
No, absolutely not. And I think as soon as the first issue kind of launched, we've had a lot of submissions, and some of them have been really, really great, which we're still speaking to the photographers who reached out to us initially. And, you know, there was one in particular that a female photographer had been working on this project for some time and been following this family and was planning a shoot with them, and said that the concept just didn't fit with the fashion magazines that she shoots for, and family portrait, she feels, is the kind of perfect fit and something that she's kind of been waiting to drop. So when we kind of get those emails, obviously that's really nice to hear. You know, those are emails that we kind of, the main reason we kind of started it again was to make it really collaborative. So yeah, we haven't ruled out submissions at all.
Nice. And one thing that, another thing that I've also realized, of course, I mean, you have launched the first issue, but you don't have a website or anything. But you share some content on social media, on Instagram. And I was wondering if maybe this is a decision to also like slow down everything, or maybe like invite, not to just like mainstream consume anything on the internet. I'm not sure if, I don't know, this is a decision you've made on purpose.
The website's a controversial talking point for us.
Oh wow, I'm sorry about this.
No, it's fine. I get like the reality of it is there's the two of us that put in any free time we have into the project, and like we said, getting the first issue off the ground, making sure we had the photographers, we managed to get the design right, the identity for the magazine right. The printing first, was a big kind of tick for us to get that to a high standard as well for the imagery we were presenting in it. So the website kind of fell to the bottom of the list a little bit. It is something we are working on, but again, we don't want to have a website just for the sake of having a website. We want the website to have purpose. And the discussion around the website was that if any collaborators shoot moving image to also complement their story, then that's when we would introduce a website. So again, it's sort of like the print will still live in print, and it will only live there, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's, the idea of having something tangible was far more enticing than kind of just having a website. And I think to do the really good websites out there, they're really curated, and you have to spend a lot of time updating it and making it look really good. And it's, the people who do it really well, they spend a lot of time on it, and we just don't have that time. But having said that, I think we should have like a holding page or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it does create a sense of mystery, like, I don't know, you kind of want to see more.
That wasn't intentional.
I think as well, there's like a lot of magazines that have that online platform that they've built, so they'll take submissions and do online features, and we're not that kind of magazine. So it would be for information, probably where to buy it, or
that would
for
help.
moving image is something we want to introduce as well.
I think with stuff with websites especially is like, unless you're going to do it well, just don't bother doing it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many fantastic magazines, and their websites aren't great, because I don't think the love's been put into it. And I think, I don't think we're interested enough in running an online magazine as well.
So this is basically, as you were saying before, this is the first magazine you've both founded, although you've worked previously in magazines.
I've worked on, so I started a magazine called Used years ago, probably about 10 years ago now. And we did, I think, 5 issues when I had a design agency with SJ worked at. And then
he gave me my first ever job.
Oh, wow.
That's how we met.
Worst decision ever. And then I did a magazine called Boys and Girls and Boys, with Nicola Butler, who's a British Vogue. And then I started True Photo Journal. I had an idea, and then contacted Pete Hughes, who's the creative director of Assembly, and then so this is the fourth one. So it's definitely a labour of love.
So what would you say that has been the challenges? Like, what would you recommend, I don't know, emerging magazines?
I think if you want to start a magazine, I think the having each magazine that I've worked on, you make mistakes and you learn from mistakes. And I think that the key thing is to have a really, really simple idea and a clear message about what you're going to do. You see a lot of people starting magazines which kind of that they're talking about the crossover with fashion and art, and the problem is that's not really an idea. It's kind of what most magazines are, because fashion is a form of art. think you've got to have something which is really simple that you can talk about very easily, and I think you have to be passionate or interested in it at least, and something that can be talked about at length. So yeah, I just keep it really simple. I think that's it.
Yeah, this might be. Yeah, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to add, I think for Brendan as well, I mean, the reason he came with the idea of family portrait was because as a photographer himself, it's something that he really wanted to shoot for, right? So it's
that's true actually. There's, you know, the magazines I've started are magazines that I'd want to shoot for. And there's not actually that many magazines which kind of give you, you know, as a photographer, you're constantly frustrated with, especially with the fashion credits, you know, like SJ was saying before, in terms of design, you'll do a project or a shoot that you're really happy with, and then they'll cut half of it, or they'll get rid of the best pictures because the other pictures have certain credits in of advertisers who are paying for the magazine. So you always compromise, you know, you're always kind of having to use a certain model, having to use certain brands, and often in terms of the layout, it kind of gets massacred after you've shot it, and you know, you have an idea. The layout is very much part of your idea when you're shooting it, and then it kind of gets destroyed afterwards. So to create a magazine which just you know, which gives you a lot of freedom, and also with the layouts, we were very much in conversation with the artists, and we wanted them to be involved in it, and we wanted them to be happy as well. We wanted to one of the biggest things I think with starting a magazine as well is having trust, because when people are spending a lot of money and putting their heart into something, you want them to be able to hand something over to you and think that they're in good hands, rather than you know, I don't know, walking over people and kind of doing what you want to do with the imagery. And you know, I think everyone at some point has experienced that, and I think, you know, we wanted to be quite good with that kind of thing from the beginning.
Yeah, of course. I think especially for also like graduating students, I think that can be like something that we have to kind of learn from our side, like how to make how to meet people that are willing to respect work, and how to like make one's work respected somehow. So I was wondering maybe if you had any, I don't know, soon to be graduate advice for soon to be graduated students in terms of collaborating with magazines and in terms of protecting one's work.
SJ?
I mean, I can answer from my perspective. Brendan might have something to add from his kind of photography experience, but as a creative director, it's kind of, I'll always sort of take the photographer's side, because I know how difficult it can be with kind of all those requests that come in from magazines or various collaborators, brands, etc. And I think, again, it does come down to trust, and you will have very good working relationships for years if you build trust with a photographer or a collaborator in a different field. And it's just about communication. You're never probably going to like everything that the other person likes, but it's again about having an open and honest conversation, rather than going over someone's head just because you can, or because it doesn't work for you. You know, I think that's the most important thing about collaborating. I actually graduated from LCC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 2012, I think.
Okay.
We were encouraged a lot to kind of just dig in deep and kind of go and do work experience, etc. And you sort of pick up as you go along with experience what studios will appreciate you as a valid member of staff, and you kind of start to navigate through, you know, where you're going to fit, and it's about getting the most out of any kind of experience or work collaboration you take on. But I think the main thing is just, yeah, kind of being honest and being as collaborative as possible, and yeah, just, you know.
I mean, for me, I'd say be honest. I think you know, when we've commissioned work, or I've commissioned work, or you look at people's personal work. You don't really look at. I mean, if you're a photographer, you'll end up shooting probably small front of page stuff for magazines, and you'll kind of quite often it's one image here, one image there, and I think it's good because you build up relationships with people. But I think that the key is just to go and work on things that excite you and genuinely interest you, because when you meet people as well, you want to be able to. You can tell when someone's done something that they're really happy with or really engaged with. And when art directors sit down with you, I mean, the amount of times I've taken my portfolio and I've shown them like magazines that that they might be impressed with that I've shot for, and they're like, yeah. And then you'll show them a little project that you've done on the side, or some holiday snaps that you've done, and they'll be like, oh, that's really interesting, I really like that. And people, you know, there's so much imagery out there nowadays, there's so much just content, and I think it's kind of, you see certain photographers and certain styles of imagery which is like everyone kind of gets magnetized towards, and I think actually the people doing their own thing and just kind of ignoring it are the ones that are most interesting. And I think they're kind of they're the people who go on to do really well. You know, the people the big photographers now, they're kind of doing stuff that no one else was doing at the time, and I think they're the ones who've gone on to be the most successful.
Yeah, and exactly what Brendan said in regards to kind of the personal projects, especially when I look at photographers' portfolios. What I get out of meeting photographers the most is that you see personal work from them, and they are, you know, they present, and it's very genuine, and it's with a lot of passion behind it, and that's what kind of sparks the most inspiration. And it's definitely where I get a lot of inspiration from too, in seeing the photographer's personal work, because I think a lot of people think, oh, if you shot for the biggest names, and in terms of publications, in terms of brands, of course, yes, that gets people's attention. But I think if someone's talented and they're doing what they love, then that also is a very strong visual too.
Yeah, like that's going to stand out more than maybe trying to like, yeah, of course, absolutely. So coming to an end, I know we've already briefly mentioned issue number 2, but I was hoping maybe you could like give us, I mean, of course, well, we were talking before how this might have been postponed because of the COVID, but like any exciting news that you're looking forward to in issue 2?
You go.
Okay. I mean, obviously we're in talks with collaborators and photographers at the moment. We have a list, and you know, we've got some. We want to introduce new names first and foremost. Even though we are incredibly happy with every single story that was shot for the last issue, whether it was shot for the magazine or there's a couple of archival projects in there too, we still think it's important to keep it fresh and kind of rotate. Those photographers might come back and shoot in issue 3 or 4 because we have a really good relationship with those photographers now. But it's about keeping it exciting, and because family has so much scope to explore, we really want to make sure that we get the most out of it. You know, there's a lot that is going on in the world right now, which we really are we're taking the time to educate ourselves on as well. We looked back at issue 1, and we did put a big emphasis on having a lot of female photographers as well as male photographers. I feel like it's quite an equal balance. But sadly, we didn't have any black artists, and we reached out to a couple of black artists. I had conversations with Tyler Mitchell and various others, and it just wasn't good timing and things like that. And that's something we really want to make sure that we do for the second issue too. We are a non-profit magazine as it kind of works at the moment, but we are looking to get funding, and we're working with Rachel, right, Brendan, your friend, who's been a big, she's been a big driving force behind the magazine, and kind of what are the positive angles we can kind of take with it. So that's something that we are focusing on for the second issue, especially being around the subject of family. We want to make sure that we're giving back as much as we can too. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at the moment. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Brendan.
No, I think you're pretty right. I think we just want to be a positive force within the fashion industry, rather than something that's kind of just another magazine. We're only small and we've only just started, but if we can do something good, then I think it'll be worth it.
Yeah, and we do both come from quite heavy fashion backgrounds, and the main reason behind doing this magazine was to just have a kind of breath of fresh air from everything that comes with fashion, I guess. There's a lot of things that need to change in the fashion industry, and we kind of see the magazine as a step in the right direction in that sense. So we're just really excited to get going on the next issue, and yeah, hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, I'm gonna close up with this because we're running a bit of time. But thank you so much for joining us today and for participating in this festival. For everyone who's watching, you can rewatch this. It's been recorded and it will be on the website. Or if anyone hasn't had the chance to see it live, they can also check it out there. So yeah, thank you so much for being here with us. And really looking forward to that second issue. Hopefully sooner than later.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much, and good luck with the rest of your degree show too.
Thank you. It's live, I think, in less than a week. So if you want to also check on that, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well,
thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.